Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to Labors of Love Podcast, the Fatherhood series. We are here to inspire, uplift, and enlighten. Each episode, we will be hearing from fathers sharing their perspectives and experiences on all aspects of the fatherhood journey. This evening, I have the privilege of speaking with Nirule, husband, father of three, ZOLA Ambassador, and host of Young Adults Learning Y.A.L.E Podcast. Born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut, Nirule, born Nadir Abdul-Salaam, comes from a family with a rich history of community activism within the city, dating back over 120 years. As a serial entrepreneur, Nirule, along with his brother and cousin, created a t-shirt company that garnered national attention for turning corporate logos into Black cultural phrases. In addition, they opened a bookstore and a multimedia studio called the Y.A.L.E Lounge that was located downtown New Haven near the campus of Yale University. Through his travels and the various places he's lived throughout the world, including Thailand, Nirule began to appreciate how unique the Black experience in New Haven is. It was the inequalities Nirule witnessed and the oppressive influence of Yale University on the city of New Haven that fueled his research. Young Adults Learning Y.A.L.E Podcast was born out of the need to share the history of New Haven from a Black perspective. Nirule has spent over a decade in the classroom as an early childhood educator. His professional career led him to Seattle, Washington, where he currently resides with his family. Nirule is a member of Africatown Center of Education and Innovation, as well as a ZOLA Ambassador. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome. Welcome. Peace and blessings, family. I am excited about tonight's conversation because I'm a little biased. It's my brother. So peace, Nirule. I'm glad you could come on Labors of Love Podcast.
Peace, Hafeeza. I appreciate you having me. Been looking forward to being a part of your project for some time. So, thank you for having me.
Yes. So yeah, we're gonna jump right in because this time goes by so quickly. So from early on, what do you recall, or what were some of the messages that you received about pregnancy, labor, delivery, parenthood, in preparation for?
Yeah, well, I was always made aware that I was a product of a C-section, but it wasn't something that she necessarily wanted. So I always knew that C-sections weren't something, that was necessarily desirable, and that's the type of impression that it kept on me. And as far as with parenting, the way it was approached in our household, it was, kind of hands on, kind of hands off. And, we bumped our heads a lot, but we learned a lot. They kept us a lot of guidance and things like that and made sure that there was a structure for us to, see and to live out. So that's something that I appreciate from my parents.
Yeah, definitely. What were kind of the things that you did hands on to support your wife in the process?
Well, it was because it came out as a surprise almost that she was pregnant, and we were already on our road to better health and really start paying more attention to our physical bodies. So when that came about, we really took focus on making sure that she stays healthy physically and mentally. um, I stay physically active as well as make sure that my behavior towards her keeps her in a positive, healthy mental state, and really being conscious about that, and really thinking about how we're going to move about as a unit in regards to our nutrition, our diet, and things of that nature, to pass on to our child.
Yeah. No, that's powerful because I think, as far as the conversation around the support, I don't know if it's as much in the conversation, especially talking to men, because like you said, that mental state plays a significant role, right? Like the
Yes.
impact that how she feels during the pregnancy, like the baby feels, all of those things. So it looks like you all were really proactive in overall wellness in that
Yes,
process.
and having an understanding that during that time females are vulnerable with
Mhm.
all those hormone and chemical changes that they're experiencing due to having another life in their body, that sometimes their actions might be more than what the problem may be. And sometimes you gotta have an understanding. So if you're not thinking from that angle, it could become a huge conflict. But if you
Yeah.
have that understanding of where some of those tensions may be coming from, you'll respond differently. And that's what I, figured out over time on what's the best way to respond. So, not saying no response, but how you respond is really important to those things.
Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate that. Was there anything that you read or began to gain an understanding of that kind of better prepared you for what to expect? Or how did you prepare in that regard?
Just looking at the people who had experiences around me, was really one of the first persons that I knew close to me that had a child.
Mhm.
And when I went up to sell your first daughter, I fell in love.
Yeah, I know.
And yeah, and a lot of that also motivated me personally to get into early childhood education. So I can,
Yeah.
better function and be a better asset as an uncle. So, and then seeing that, and then also as a 5%er, I will had Sayana Devotion inside my circle, and she's really big into doula and midwifery and things like that. So having those conversations and watching her do her work, and always having her available just to ask questions about little things, even though I had an understanding and hearing her talk, gave me my worldview on how I wanted to create my family and bring that into existence.
Yes, yes, yes. And that is so important, that village. And, I'm a little biased because you are amazing when it comes to children.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we loved the Uncle Nye visits because it was always just a wonderful time. So, as far as the experiences themselves, you now have three under your belt.
Yeah, yeah.
So, from that perspective of the pregnancy and the labor and delivery process, before we even go into the parenthood experience, from those three experiences that you have, what were some of the things that were different? What was consistent? What are some of the wisdom that you can share from that?
Well, each experience was unique in itself. From the beginning of the pregnancy all the way through, how she felt, and the energy level that she had, her levels of sickness, and how long she remained sick, and her activities were different from the first one to the last one. And what I was able to learn is being adaptable. So going into, and also it was ill because we had different hospitals between my first one and my second one. So our first experience, uh, we kind of wanted to do a home birth, but we didn't have the network to do a home birth. So we looked for a birthing center because I remember you was telling us about that in your experience. So we ended up enrolling at the birthing center at Yale New Haven Hospital. It is exactly what it sounds like. So they had, it was a beautiful place, as far as aesthetically,
Aesthetic.
but
Mhm.
wasn't homely, wasn't cozy. And they had certain rules, like they didn't want us to be too loud. So they like, so I'm like, so you're not expecting us to scream, like, because like there's other families on them. So I'm like, so how does this work? So hearing those type of things in those type of parameters
Yeah,
made the experience different.
yeah.
So but overall the care, we didn't have no real problems with the care. As far, she went into the pool and came out, broke her water, broke in the water. Then
Mm.
she came out 4 pushes and the baby was here. So
Wow.
like that was easy. I'm like, oh, that was a piece of cake, you know. We was in
Biscuits.
Yeah, so we was in the hospital for like 3 days for that first time, and we brought her home, and that experience was um for me, I'll say it was the easiest experience out of all three.
Okay.
Um, the second labor was a little bit longer.
And this is
Uh,
in a different hospital, correct?
yep, this is when now I'm in Seattle, so I'm in the
Okay.
Bellevue area. We totally level of different type of level of care,
Okay.
and a more respect for how other cultures bring out their babies. So they didn't mind the screaming, the noise, the talking, and this is pre-COVID, so it was more people inside the room,
Okay.
and it definitely made for a even better experience.
Mm.
And uh, she really enjoyed and saw the contrast between the two places, and the level of compassion and empathy from the nurses and the nurses' aides and things like that. So it really made me really, cause I really paid attention this time. The
Mhm.
other time, okay, it's my first. I'm just getting input for this time. I wanted to make sure that we're taken care of properly, and they really did a good job on that, and that was a great experience.
Mm.
And all these were natural births, no epidural, just straight up
Vaginal
water,
birth.
water breaks in the bathtub, and a few pushes, and both of them came out, and these were both of my girls.
Mm-hmm.
They had real similar births. So my most recent one, about four months ago, was my son, and this was the different one. So this is the same birth as my second daughters.
Same
Same
house.
my second daughters.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is a brand new birthing center that we were in this time. So everything is state of the art. Everything is made for birthing. And
Mhm.
it was real interesting. Um, we went into the water. Water didn't break that time.
Okay.
And this pregnancy, they said that she had. I'm not. I forgot the term of it,
Mhm.
but it is an overproduction of water.
Okay.
So that was why they suggested that we induced, but
Okay.
the induction was like the same around the time that she would be due. But they
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that when the water did break, that if anything did come out in excess, that it was somewhere that we had emergency help for her to do so. So
Okay.
that's why it was suggested that we control that process.
Mhm.
So the nurse broke the water for us, and it's a huge flake, the most I've ever seen. The most,
Okay.
and it was like but then she had to push,
Mhm.
so they had a push bar on the bed,
Mhm.
and I had to assist her with that, and hold her and coach her through her breathing, and just being mindful of where the baby is. When the baby was crying, just let her know where it's at, how many more pushes we need to do, and
Mhm.
you know we pushed it out together, and that probably was like the longest labor that she had.
Mm.
And this was a 10-pound baby.
Hoo-hoo. We
So
have a big, don't we?
it's a 10-pound baby, yeah, all natural, and that was that experience. But the interesting part about this one was we had a set of nurses, beginning were really encouraging her to take medicine. You
Mhm.
know, like, oh, why don't you take medicine? Everyone takes medicine, but like we're not. That's not our choice. And that's we're choosing to do natural. But
Right.
they almost made it seem like we're making a wrong mistake. And I'm like, I think we need another nurse. So
Mhm.
we got another nurse, and she was an Asian descent. My wife's Asian descent too, so it was a more of a clique.
Mhm.
And she understood exactly what we're trying to do, and she supported us on our choice. And
Wow.
that type of energy makes the total difference inside of that room.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you're in opposition with the nurses, it's like, are you gonna save my baby? Like, it comes to that point. So, it was really, really a little, really tension before that, but after that switch came and we was able to make sure our voice was heard and put on the forefront, that made everything a lot smoother. So,
Yeah.
even though the labor was a little bit longer, it came out successful. That's a big baby, so couldn't expect nothing less than that.
I appreciate your point in reference to the energy of the nurses, and that it does bring up that question, like, if I don't go with what you're recommending, does that mean like I'm every man for themselves kind of thing? Like you said, like, are you going to help me with my, like, that, and that energy in the space, it does not add value. But for you to be able to, be present and be another voice in the room, because I can only imagine how vulnerable Jet was feeling during this process, and to have somebody else that on your side, is going to be there. And the other piece to that was, technically this is during COVID as well. So what is that contrast like? Like, you've had an experience in Connecticut, you've had experience in Seattle, pre-COVID. What were the dynamics there with this process?
The post-COVID process was a lot different. A lot different, and there was a limited amount of people within the room. Everyone had to keep their mask up and everything at all times.
Even Jet, she could have.
She tried to, but once everything got ready, she had, she just got loose because before. So when she's just walking around and just going through her labor pains, she'll keep her mask on while she's walking around. We couldn't have family members there, and my daughters couldn't come see him. We had to wait until he got out for them to come see him, or talk through video calls. So it gets lonely. Like, it's because when we had our children before, my first time, both the grandmothers were in the room. The second time, we had her aunts and things that were there present. So this time it was just us two. So it was just like, that's how you get that us against the world type feeling, because we need to make sure that we bring him home to our family unit, and that's how we kind of carried it at that point.
Wow. So yeah, that's definitely a wealth of knowledge just from those experiences. How was it when the actual baby crowning and coming out? Like, did you cut the umbilical cord? Like, what was the experience for you from a father perspective, when that took place?
For all three, you speaking of? Yeah, because it was the same experience for all three. As soon as I seen the head, because I'll be monitoring for her, so she understand how much she needs to push and what point where the baby's at and things like that. And like, those are like in my opinion and from my experience, those are like the most scariest moments of the entire process. It's just the limbo of life and death, and trauma, and because it's everything. The smells of trauma, everything is there. Screaming, and you just want to get through those moments, and make sure you get to the other side. So those are the most heart-wrenching moments for me. But just as soon as you get that baby, and I'll grab the baby and I'll put the baby on her chest. I'll put the towel on her. That's been my tradition that I did since the first one. I'll grab it, I'll put it there, let the umbilical cord and stay there, and then I'll cut it later. But that's been my tradition. I'll be the first one to touch it, first one to look at him in the face. So
and what is that like? Like, I mean, to be able to do, like, this is, you've just met a new human. Like, you got this life now. Because I know for me, I'm like, oh my God, a baby.
But like I said, it's the culmination of 9 months of a lot of work, daily, constant, daily. You gotta make sure she eat. You gotta make sure she wake up. You gotta make sure everything is right for this 9 months, and then to that moment, and it feels like it, and then it's the beginning of another transition. Now is life on, in physical life, but just to get to that point, and then seeing that moment is, I say one of them. It's an amazing moment, and it's inspirational as a father, because it's a cause and effect that you are, the main cause, and you see the effect, and it's something that's living and tangible in your hands now. That experience for me, changed me as a person and how I interact with, with the rest of humanity, because of my responsibility and my duty to my children.
So that's a beautiful segue into the experience of fatherhood, right? Even in embodying that father like energy prior to them coming into the world. What does that mean for you? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's one thing that I felt played a huge role as far as me being a father was being an educator and having knowledge of child development, and interacting with hundreds and hundreds of kids, prior to having my own children. So, I know what a typical behavior is and what's not typical, the proper ways to react to certain things and how to, teach and guide children. And, the the fun part, and that's what I embrace about it. So having my children, I finally have my own students. And that's kind of how I looked at it. I got my own students that before, they be my best friends, but then they go away and I don't see them anymore. So, you instill all these things, and I just gotta wonder, like, make sure I wonder if they're using it. But with my own children, I can see all the growth and development, and I'm there, and I'm aware of all the things that need to be done in order to bring them to success. So those experiences were, I think, as for a father, really, really helpful, and made a difference, I could say.
No, definitely. So definitely having that skill set coming over. I see my family over there. Hey, beautiful people. So as far as for fathers that are soon to be fathers that are listening, what are some of the things that in this moment, they could consider that would improve or have a positive impact on this journey? What are some of the things that you can begin to get on board now so that you
Really, it comes down to defining who you are as a man, and understanding what it is to be a man. I had my first child at 35, and I really, really can respect the maturity level that needed to be done in order for me to be a father. Because I can only imagine being a 25-year-old, 20, 18-year-old with
Oh my
those
God.
responsibilities, but those same, internal needs and wanting for experiences. So by the time I had my child, I was mature enough so I didn't want to have to go to the nightclubs and things like that, or I was pretty much settled down. But like I said, if I was at a younger age, like the 25-year-old me, I couldn't see myself being responsible and having the tool set at that time in my life to do so. But if you are in that point in your life where you have this responsibility, you have the duty to yourself, your family, and your children to be a man. And like I said, you got to define what manhood is for you, and whatever it needs to be, it needs to make sure that your children are coming first. Their safety and their well-being is the number one rule of the goal. Number one goal at the end of the day. So whatever you need to do to make sure that they good, that you're good, and your relationship with them is healthy, so that their future will be better than yourselves. And that's my whole thing. I want my children to be better than me. Have better than me, to see better than me, have experiences that I have never experienced, and that's my motivation. So, find what motivates you and what you want for your children, and think big, and you take self-discipline, self-accountability. You have to heal yourself from whatever past traumas and grievances you have, because if you don't, you're going to carry that over, and your children will be affected. So we definitely want to make sure that you come in as a healthy, you're saying, human being, and you're doing your responsibility and your duty as a man.
No, that's definitely powerful. Like you said, what you don't work on is going to come up You talk about repair and repeat. I think that's like a beautiful segue into talking about some of the things that, you know, you have going on from a community standpoint with the podcast, all of those things. Definitely let people know, what you have going on right now.
Okay, so right now my project is working with Young Adults Learning Evil Podcast, which is a podcast that focuses on the historical systemic racism inside of a small New England town of New Haven, which is my hometown, and also the home of Yale University. So it talks about how the dynamics of the university and the city interacted with New Haven's Black community since the mid 1600s to now. So as a case study for systemic racism and oppression, I break down certain events and certain actions that occur within the city and its population that change the world basically. And I'm also working in Seattle with the Africa Town Project, where we're doing Africa Town Center for Education and Innovation, where we go into inner city neighborhoods, and the main inner city neighborhood in Seattle that we're working with is the Central District, and we're creating like educational programs for the youth to interact, especially during this time of COVID. So we're doing virtual as well as outdoor STEM projects where we're able to interact and they're able to have uh, black teachers and interact with black teachers as well, because we understand those are as well are pretty much unicorns in our society, and children are also looking for very meaningful learning experiences right now. And we're also doing a ZOLA, which is a healing and grieving circles, and it's culturally respective for it's for anyone from any walk of life dealing with any type of trauma or loss or grief, and we create these conversations and spaces for conversations. So we've done them with co-ed, we've done all male groups, we've done all female groups, and we also done youth groups as well. And we're just creating this as a trend within Seattle, and hopefully our model can be exported to the rest of the country and the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like, what you spoke to before, as far as even preparation for fatherhood, this is a transition, right? This is something that is significant. So I feel like, fatherhood Zola circles would be impactful, just to kind of, like you said, to address those traumas, to address, some of the fears that you have coming in. And
Yep,
just
and as a father, you know, living as a black man in America, you know, you got to stay confident and having self confidence, and then sometimes dealing with life, sometimes things go certain ways, and you got to make sure that you can fill your cup back up. And,
right.
you got to keep your cup filled because people are looking at you as a model,
Yeah.
so that's really important. So just you're right, trying to keep a circle of brotherhood and fatherhood as well. So
Yeah.
definitely going to look into creating something as in that aspect is and particularly for black fathers, because a lot of us um don't have models to have, so we're creating off the fly, and it's good for us to discuss what works best for us and for each other, so those conversations, you can get the best information for yourself.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. That's powerful stuff. And definitely want people to be able to plug in to the podcast, because I'm telling you, it doesn't matter where you're from, you can relate and understand. This is a model city. So the things that go on here, the historical data really laid the framework for what we are existing in this
Mhm.
nation at this time. So I mean, everyone that I know who has come across this podcast, it's eye opening, it's mind blowing. Just the way in which you present the information is just very much captivating and informative. So I definitely want you to put or let everyone know how to get access to your podcast, how to get in touch with you, whether it's for the podcast or for the Zola experience. Please share.
No problem. You can go to l7minds.com, and that has a lot of the information on the podcast, a few other businesses that we're doing as well. There will be a page for ZOLA, but you can also, for ZOLA information, you can go to the ZOLAexperience.com, where there's information in regards to the book about it, as well as you're able to book our healing circles. So we'll be having virtual healing circles where you can join from anywhere in the world, and we can have these discussions together. And my email address is nasalam@gmail.com. And I'm open to anything, collaborations, discussions. I would love to speak to any group about these things, especially for Black History Month. So or can call me up. Yeah. And just in general, if any fathers out there or young fathers that want to create community, always I'm definitely there to answer or give you my feedback on my experiences.
Yes, that is so beautiful, and that is so necessary. Creating your village, creating that support system around you, having families that have children around the same age, all of those things are beneficial, and just having the support necessary to parent in a way that is balanced and healthy. So I appreciate all of your feedback. I appreciate your experiences and just the wisdom that you share. And again, I'm a little biased, but I know what an amazing father you are. So that is so what you're speaking to is definitely wisdom. And I feel like your children are a product of that. So their emotional IQ, how they're operating in the world, you can tell that they're coming from a place of love. Like we're all growing and developing and we're doing our best. But when that is the foundation and that's the motivating factor, it definitely shows up. So I am grateful that you could share some of that wisdom and energy on this platform. And I'm looking forward to many, many more conversations that we include the broader audience because we're going to keep talking, but we got to bring other people in.
That's true. That is so true. And like I said, if you ever do, I would love to be on a panel. If you make a panel of fathers and we can just, go through some things together, I think that would be good too. But like I said, I love what you're doing. This is definitely something that our community needs. And on the doula side, as far as the father side as well. And best of luck for you, 2022 and beyond. We're here for you. So whatever you need from us, we're here to support.
Yes, and I truly appreciate that. Love to you and the family. Give all of them beautiful people a kiss and a hug for me.
Will do.
And if you found value in this conversation, please continue to share. We can't talk about this enough. Just the visual of these just empowering and genuine Black men, I feel like is such value to be able to see. So definitely keep this conversation going, keep this message out there, just share, and join us for our next episode where we'll continue the conversation. Peace and blessings, family.
Peace.